Hello, everybody. I'm Tom Smith.
I do appreciate you being here for the time.
Most Fast and Loud fans know Tom Smith as the wisecracking mechanic who got fired from Gas Monkey Garage. But did you know he crashed into a police car at age 10, worked on the World Trade Center, holds a patent for a kill switch invention, and once tried to turn an AMC Gremlin into a boat? From his secret stand-up comedy career to his bizarre book collection and near-death aquatic car stunt, Tom's life is filled with jaw-dropping surprises. Here are 15 things you never knew about Tom Smith from Fast and Loud. Child criminal at age 10. Most kids get in trouble for breaking curfew or not doing their homework. But Tom Smith managed to rack up his first traffic violation before he even hit double digits. When Tom was just 10 years old, living in Georgia with his family, he decided to take his uncle's 1974 Pontiac Granville for an unauthorized joyride that would end up becoming one of the most memorable moments of his childhood for all the wrong reasons. Tom had been working on cars at his uncle's house from a young age, learning the ins and outs of engines and mechanics, but apparently nobody thought to teach him about the legal driving age. On this particular day, the young future Fast and Loud star climbed behind the wheel of the massive Pontiac and took off down the road, completely unaware that his adventure was about to take a dramatic turn. When the police spotted the obviously underage driver cruising around in the big Pontiac, they immediately moved to pull him over. This is where most kids might panic, pull over, and face the consequences. But Tom Smith was never most kids. Instead of stopping when the officers tried to pull him over, Tom made a decision that would define his rebellious nature for years to come. Rather than bringing the car to a controlled stop, he ended up crashing the stolen Pontiac directly into the police car that was trying to apprehend him. The crash itself wasn't serious enough to cause major injuries, but it certainly got everyone's attention and marked Tom's official introduction to law enforcement. The incident resulted in his first traffic violation at the tender age of 10, making him probably one of the youngest people to ever have such a dramatic first encounter with the police. When Tom finally made it home after this automotive adventure gone wrong, he faced what he later described as some serious spanking from his family, though clearly the punishment didn't cure his love for cars or his willingness to take risks that would later make him famous on television. World Trade Center tower worker. Long before Tom Smith became known as the wisecracking mechanic on Fast and Loud, he had a completely different career that took him to one of the most famous locations in American history. During his early working years, Tom spent time as a television tower technician. And one of the most significant projects he worked on was at Tower 2 of the World Trade Center in New York City, connecting him directly to what would later become one of the most recognizable and tragic landmarks in the United States. This work happened years before Tom ever stepped foot in Gas Monkey Garage or appeared on television. During a period when he was moving around the country, taking on various technical jobs that had nothing to do with cars, the television tower work required a very different set of skills from automotive repair, involving complex electrical systems, broadcasting equipment, and working at incredible heights that most people would find terrifying. Tower technicians like Tom were responsible for maintaining the equipment that kept television and radio signals broadcasting across major metropolitan areas, which was crucial infrastructure work that most people never think about but rely on every day. Working on Tower 2 of the World Trade Center meant that Tom had an up-close and personal relationship with the massive structure that dominated the New York City skyline for decades. He would have been familiar with the building's layout, its technical systems, and the incredible engineering that went into constructing and maintaining such an enormous facility. The World Trade Center towers were engineering marvels of their time, and the television broadcasting equipment housed there was some of the most sophisticated technology available. This connection to the World Trade Center gives Tom's personal history an unexpected link to a major piece of American history that most people would never associate with a Texas-based car mechanic and reality television. Personality. The work also demonstrates that Tom's technical skills and willingness to take on challenging, potentially dangerous jobs existed long before he became famous for working on custom cars and entertaining television audiences with his unique personality and one-liners. Patent-holding inventor. While most Fast and Loud fans know Tom Smith for his ability to wrench on classic cars and deliver memorable one-liners, very few people realize that he's actually a legitimate inventor who holds official patents for his mechanical innovations. During his years working as a television tower technician, Tom identified a safety problem that needed solving and ended up creating a device that was innovative enough to earn him patent protection from the United States Patent and Trademark Office. The invention that earned Tom his patent was a kill switch specifically designed for television towers, which represented a significant safety improvement for the dangerous work that tower technicians had to perform on a regular basis. Kill switches are emergency safety devices that can instantly shut down electrical systems or equipment when something goes wrong, and Tom's version was tailored specifically for the unique challenges and hazards that come with working on tall broadcasting towers. Having a reliable way to immediately cut power to tower equipment could literally be the difference between life and death. For workers who found themselves in dangerous situations hundreds of feet above the ground. But Tom's innovative streak didn't stop with the kill switch patent, because he also achieved another mechanical first that demonstrated his ability to think outside the box when it came to improving existing equipment. Tom became the very first person to outfit a hoist with a fuel-injected engine, which was a modification that nobody had thought to attempt before him. Hoists are mechanical lifting devices used in construction and industrial work, and they traditionally used simpler engine designs that weren't as efficient or reliable as fuel injection systems. By adapting fuel injection technology for use in a hoist, Tom was able to create a more powerful and dependable piece of equipment. These inventions show a completely different side of Tom's mechanical abilities that goes far beyond just fixing up classic cars for television. The fact that he was thinking about safety improvements and efficiency upgrades in completely different industries proves that his innovative mind was always working on solutions to real-world problems, whether he was working on broadcasting towers or custom automobiles. State Spelling Bee Champion. If you only knew Tom Smith from watching him work on cars and crack jokes on Fast and Loud, you'd probably never guess that he was once a serious academic competitor who made it all the way to the state level in one of America's most challenging intellectual competitions. During his childhood years in Georgia, Tom demonstrated that his talents extended far beyond taking apart engines and getting into trouble when he managed to place third in a state spelling bee championship, proving that there was a sharp mind hiding behind his rough-around-the-edges personality. Spelling bees are notoriously difficult competitions that require not just memorization, but also a deep understanding of language patterns, word origins, and linguistic rules that can help contestants figure out unfamiliar words under intense pressure. To make it to the state level means that Tom had already won his local and regional competitions, beating out hundreds or possibly thousands of other students who were also competing for the chance to represent their schools and communities at the highest level of academic competition. The fact that Tom placed third in the state championship puts his intellectual abilities in a completely different light from what most Fast and Loud viewers would expect from the wisecracking mechanic who seemed more interested in horsepower than homework. State spelling bee competitions typically feature the very best students from across an entire state, meaning that Tom was competing against kids who had been studying vocabulary and spelling rules for years, and who represented the top academic talent from schools all across Georgia. This achievement is particularly surprising when you consider that Tom was the same kid who was crashing cars into police officers and getting into all kinds of mischief during his childhood years. The spelling bee success shows that even as a young troublemaker, Tom had the discipline and intellectual capacity to excel in academic pursuits when he put his mind to it. His third-place finish means he was literally one of the 3 best spellers in the entire state of Georgia for his age group, which is an accomplishment that very few people can claim, regardless of what career path they eventually choose. Secret stand-up comedian. While millions of viewers have watched Tom Smith deliver hilarious one-liners and wisecracks on Fast and Loud and Misfit Garage, most people have no idea that his comedic timing isn't just natural talent, but actually comes from years of professional training and performance as a legitimate stand-up comedian. Tom has been moonlighting as a professional comic for years, regularly performing at established comedy venues and improv clubs where he hones the same quick wit and storytelling abilities that made him such a memorable television personality. Tom's comedy career has taken him to some of the most respected venues in the comedy world, including performances at Christie's in Manhattan, which is one of New York City's well-known comedy clubs, where aspiring and established comedians test their material in front of tough urban audiences. He has also performed multiple times at the Dallas Improv, which is part of a national chain of comedy clubs that regularly features both local talent and nationally touring comedians, meaning that Tom was sharing stages with serious professional entertainers who make their living purely from making people laugh. What makes Tom's comedy career even more impressive is his dedication to continuing his performances even during the most challenging circumstances, including throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, when most entertainment venues were either closed or operating under severe restrictions. While many comedians had to put their careers on hold during this period, Tom found ways to keep performing live comedy sessions, showing that his commitment to the craft goes far beyond just having a hobby or occasional side gig. The fact that Tom maintained an active stand-up career while also filming television shows demonstrates his incredible work ethic and passion for entertaining people in multiple formats. Stand-up comedy requires a completely different set of skills from television work, including the ability to read live audiences, adapt material on the spot, and handle hecklers or difficult crowds without the safety net of editing or multiple takes. Tom's success in both arenas shows that his natural comedic abilities are backed up by real professional experience and training in the demanding world of live entertainment. Bizarre book collector. Behind Tom Smith's grease-stained overalls and mechanic's persona lies one of the most eclectic and surprising book collections you'll ever hear about, featuring everything from groundbreaking scientific works to an almost obsessive fascination with bacon recipes that borders on the ridiculous. Tom's reading habits reveal a mind that's constantly hungry for knowledge across wildly different subjects, and his collection includes some truly remarkable items that most people would never expect to find in a car mechanic's personal library. One of the crown jewels of Tom's collection is an autographed copy of Albert Einstein's autobiography, which represents not just a valuable collectible, but also Tom's genuine interest in understanding how one of history's greatest scientific minds approached problem-solving and innovation. Einstein's autobiography is considered essential reading for anyone interested in physics, philosophy, or the creative process behind revolutionary thinking, and having a signed copy suggests that Tom values learning from the very best minds in human history. Tom has also collected the complete works of Isaac Asimov, the legendary science fiction writer who was incredibly prolific during his lifetime and wrote hundreds of books covering everything from robotics to space exploration to popular science explanations. Asimov was known for making complex scientific concepts accessible to everyday readers, which probably appeals to Tom's practical approach to learning and his ability to explain complicated mechanical processes in simple terms that anyone can understand. But perhaps the most bizarre aspect of Tom's collection is his claim to own 9 million bacon recipes, including specialty items like cinnamon bacon rolls that showcase his apparent obsession with finding new and creative ways to prepare this particular type of meat. While 9 million recipes sounds like an exaggeration, the fact that Tom specifically mentions cinnamon bacon rolls shows that he's not just collecting basic bacon preparation methods, but is genuinely interested in exploring unusual flavor combinations and cooking techniques that most people would never think to try. This combination of highbrow scientific literature and lowbrow food obsession perfectly captures Tom's unique personality and demonstrates that his curiosity extends far beyond cars and comedy into realms that most people would consider completely unrelated. AMC Gremlin boat disaster. Of all the wild automotive stunts that Tom Smith has attempted over the years, none comes close to matching the sheer audacity and spectacular failure of his attempt to turn an AMC Gremlin into an amphibious vehicle, a project that ended with him literally fighting for his life at the bottom of a lake. The AMC Gremlin was already considered one of the worst cars ever made by most automotive enthusiasts, but Tom had owned one for years and claimed it was actually a great car that ran every good, which made it the perfect candidate for what he thought would be an epic engineering experiment. When Tom finally got tired of driving the Gremlin on regular roads, he decided to give the much-maligned vehicle what he called a burial at sea. But instead of simply getting rid of the car, he came up with an elaborate plan to transform it into a floating vehicle that could drive straight into a lake. Working with a friend, Tom constructed and attached a wooden boat structure around the entire Gremlin, complete with a proper prow and bow that they thought would make the car seaworthy enough to actually float on the water like a real boat. The plan was to drive the modified Gremlin off a boat ramp and into a local lake, where Tom expected his wooden boat additions would keep the car afloat and allow him to cruise around the water in his unique amphibious creation. However, the moment the Gremlin hit the water, the wooden boat structure that Tom and his friend had built completely broke apart on impact, leaving the car with no flotation whatsoever and causing it to immediately start sinking toward the bottom of the lake. As the Gremlin rapidly filled with water and began its descent to the lake floor, Tom found himself trapped inside a sinking vehicle with no way to open the doors against the water pressure. In a moment of pure desperation, he had to kick out one of the car windows to create an escape route, allowing him to swim to safety while his amphibious automotive experiment became a permanent underwater monument to ambitious engineering projects gone horribly wrong. Dream Cars Obsession. While Tom Smith has worked on hundreds of different vehicles throughout his career on Fast and Loud and Misfit Garage, there are two specific cars that represent his ultimate automotive fantasies and perfectly capture his passion for both raw speed and classic American engineering excellence. Tom's dream cars are a 1964 Thunderbolt and a 1965 Shelby Cobra, two legendary vehicles that showcase completely different approaches to automotive performance, but both represent the absolute pinnacle of their respective categories in the muscle car world. The 1964 Thunderbolt that Tom dreams of owning is one of the most legendary drag racing cars ever built by Ford, created specifically for professional drag strip competition during the height of the muscle car wars in the 1960s. Ford only built around 100 Thunderbolts, making them incredibly rare and valuable collector cars that were designed from the ground up to dominate quarter-mile racing. With their lightweight fiberglass body panels and massively powerful 427 cubic inch engines that could produce well over 400 horsepower in an era when most street cars struggled to reach half that amount. Tom's other dream car, the 1965 Shelby Cobra, represents a completely different philosophy of automotive performance that focused on combining lightweight construction with enormous engine power to create what many consider the ultimate American sports car. The Shelby Cobra was the result of legendary racing driver and car builder Carroll Shelby taking a lightweight British AC Ace Roadster and cramming a massive Ford V8 engine into it, creating a car that could accelerate faster than almost anything else on the road, while also being capable of incredible handling and cornering performance on winding roads or racetracks. These two dream cars perfectly represent the two sides of Tom's automotive personality, with the Thunderbolt showcasing his love for straight-line drag racing speed and the Shelby Cobra representing his appreciation for well-balanced performance cars that can handle any driving situation. Both vehicles are considered holy grail cars among serious collectors and enthusiasts, with original examples selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars when they rarely come up for sale at auctions or private transactions. Fired Up. Name origin. When Tom Smith and his fellow Gas Monkey Garage refugees decided to start their own custom car shop for the Misfit Garage television show, most viewers probably assumed that Fired Up Garage was just a clever name that reflected their enthusiasm for hot rods and high-performance engines. However, the real story behind the garage name reveals a much more personal connection that traces back decades to Tom's earliest dreams of automotive entrepreneurship and contains a not-so-subtle message that most people completely miss when they hear it spoken out loud. The inspiration for Fired Up Garage actually comes from a sign that Tom created and attached to his personal toolbox way back in 1988, more than 25 years before Misfit Garage ever existed as a television show. That original sign read F&U Auto Service with a cheeky caption underneath that proclaimed, "Our customers have been satisfying us since 1973, which was Tom's way of combining his business aspirations with his characteristic sense of humor that would later make him a television favorite. Tom had been dreaming of owning his own automotive business for decades, and the F&U name represented his long-held vision of what that garage would be called when he finally had the opportunity to make it happen. The fact that he kept this dream alive on his toolbox for so many years shows just how committed he was to the idea of eventually becoming his own boss and running a custom car operation according to his own standards and personality. When the opportunity finally arose to start Fired Up Garage, after being dismissed from Gas Monkey Garage, Tom was able to bring his childhood dream full circle by using a more television-friendly version of his original F&U concept. Most people who hear Fired Up Garage think it's just referring to powerful engines or automotive enthusiasm, but anyone who knows the real story understands that the shortened FU version also serves as a perfectly crafted message to Tom's former boss Richard Rawlings, delivered with the kind of clever wordplay that reflects Tom's quick wit and ability to get the last laugh. Gas Monkeys, Tom rules. Working alongside Tom Smith at Gas Monkey Garage was apparently such a unique challenge that his co-workers had to develop an entire system of special rules and procedures specifically designed to manage his behavior when he became what they diplomatically referred to as too Tomish for the workplace environment. These weren't just casual suggestions or gentle reminders, but actual protocols that the Gas Monkey staff had to implement on a regular basis to maintain some level of order and productivity in the shop. When Tom's personality reached levels that disrupted everyone else's ability to get work done, the most revealing insight into just how disruptive Tom could become came from Christy Brimberry, the Gas Monkey Garage office manager, who explained the staff's management techniques in an intro video where she was asked directly about how they coped with Tom's behavior. Christy's response painted a picture of dealing with someone whose energy and volume could quickly spiral out of control, describing Tom's problematic behavior in terms that sounded more like managing a difficult child than working with a professional adult mechanic. According to Christy, the key to handling Tom was constantly reminding him that he was inside a building, because apparently he had a tendency to forget this basic fact and would become incredibly loud and obnoxious when he wasn't reminded of the appropriate indoor behavior expectations. Christy specifically described his problematic behavior as being like a really bad hyperactive kid, which suggests that Tom's disruptive tendencies weren't just occasional outbursts, but consistent patterns that required ongoing attention and management from his co-workers. The Gas Monkey staff had essentially developed a two-option system for dealing with Tom when he became too much to handle. And both options were remarkably simple and direct. As Christie explained it, when Tom got too loud or disruptive, they would either tell him to shut up or they would kick him out of the building entirely. These weren't subtle management techniques or diplomatic interventions, but rather straightforward commands that treated Tom more like an unruly child than a skilled professional mechanic, which says quite a bit about just how challenging his workplace behavior must have been. Fan with cystic fibrosis firing. The incident that ended Tom Smith's career at Gas Monkey Garage and launched him toward Misfit Garage fame was both deeply ironic and surprisingly heartbreaking, involving a sick fan, a luxury car, and a workplace confrontation that escalated so quickly that two popular television personalities lost their jobs in a matter of hours. The entire situation began when a visitor arrived at Gas Monkey Garage who was dealing with cystic fibrosis, a serious genetic disorder that affects the lungs and digestive system and can significantly shorten a person's life expectancy, making every day and every experience particularly meaningful for people living with this condition. When this fan asked if he could pose for a photograph next to Richard Rawlings' expensive Rolls-Royce, Tom Smith and his colleague Jordan Butler saw no harm in granting what seemed like a simple and innocent request from someone who was clearly dealing with significant health challenges. The fan wasn't asking to touch the car or sit inside it, just to stand next to the luxury vehicle for a quick photo that would probably become a treasured memory for someone whose time might be limited by his medical condition. However, the manager who was on duty that day had a completely different perspective on the situation and immediately became furious when he discovered what was happening, reportedly shouting at Tom and Jordan to get the F word away from the car in language that was both profane and loud enough to create a scene in front of the visiting fan. This aggressive response from management put Tom in an impossible position, where he could either meekly accept being berated in front of a sick fan or stand up for what he believed was the right thing to do. Tom chose to respond to the manager's profanity with his own colorful language, telling the angry supervisor to chill the F word out in what was probably an attempt to de-escalate the situation, but ended up making everything much worse. Despite the fact that the fan's cystic fibrosis condition made this a particularly sensitive situation that called for compassion rather than confrontation, Richard Rawlings decided to fire both Tom and Jordan just a few hours later, ending their fast and loud careers over what was essentially an act of kindness toward a seriously ill person. Multi-talented, singer. Just when you think you've figured out all of Tom Smith's hidden talents, another surprising ability emerges that adds yet another layer to his already impressive collection of skills that extend far beyond working on cars and making people laugh. Tom is not only a professional stand-up comedian and master mechanic, but he's also a genuinely talented singer and musician who can perform vocals and play guitar, proving that his creative abilities span multiple artistic disciplines that most people would never associate with a grease-covered garage worker from Texas. Tom's musical talents aren't just casual hobbies or party tricks that he pulls out occasionally to entertain friends, but represent real skills that he has developed and maintained over the years alongside his more publicly known careers in automotive work and comedy performance. The fact that he can both sing and play guitar suggests that Tom has invested significant time and effort into learning music theory, developing his vocal range, and mastering the technical aspects of guitar playing that require regular practice and dedication to maintain at a performance level. Having musical abilities adds another dimension to Tom's entertainment value that goes well beyond his quick wit and mechanical expertise, giving him the ability to connect with audiences in yet another completely different way that showcases his versatility as a performer. Musicians often have a different kind of stage presence and audience connection compared to comedians or television personalities, and Tom's ability to work successfully in all three areas demonstrates an unusual level of natural charisma and performance ability that most people only possess in one specific area. The combination of singing and guitar playing also requires a level of coordination and multitasking that parallels the complex problem-solving skills that make Tom such an effective mechanic, since both music and automotive repair require the ability to process multiple inputs simultaneously while maintaining precision and timing. Tom's musical talents provide yet another example of how his mind works in ways that allow him to excel in creative fields that might seem completely unrelated, but actually draw on similar underlying abilities to coordinate complex seven abilities, tasks, and entertain people through skillful performance. Dog Rescue Volunteer. Behind Tom Smith's tough guy mechanic persona and sarcastic sense of humor lies a surprisingly tender heart that reveals itself through his dedicated volunteer work, helping rescue and transport dogs who desperately need homes, medical care, or safe passage away from dangerous situations. This compassionate side of Tom's personality represents a completely different aspect of who he is when the cameras aren't rolling and he's not entertaining television audiences with his mechanical expertise and quick-witted commentary about custom car builds and garage drama. Tom's involvement in dog rescue work goes far beyond just writing checks or making occasional donations to animal welfare organizations, because he actually gets personally involved in the hands-on work of physically transporting needy dogs from one location to another when they need help getting to safety, medical treatment, or new homes. This type of volunteer work requires a significant commitment of time and energy, since rescue dogs often need to be moved quickly when emergency situations arise, and the transportation process can involve long drives, careful handling of frightened or injured animals, and coordination with multiple rescue organizations and veterinary facilities. The fact that Tom chooses to spend his free time helping vulnerable animals shows a side of his character that most Fast and Loud and Misfit Garage viewers never get to see, revealing someone who genuinely cares about making a positive difference in the lives of creatures who can't speak for themselves or improve their own situations. Dog rescue work is often emotionally challenging because volunteers regularly encounter animals who have been abused, neglected, or abandoned. And helping these dogs requires patience, gentleness, and emotional resilience that contrasts sharply with the high-energy, joke-filled environment of television car shows. Tom's commitment to dog rescue also demonstrates that his problem-solving skills and willingness to help others extends well beyond the automotive world into areas where his mechanical abilities aren't relevant. But his basic human decency and desire to help those in need can make a real difference. The transportation aspect of rescue work is particularly important because many dogs need to travel significant distances to reach the right homes or medical facilities, and volunteers like Tom provide the crucial link that makes successful rescues possible. Pro bass fishing enthusiast. When Tom Smith isn't working on cars or performing stand-up comedy, he can often be found pursuing outdoor activities that showcase a completely different set of skills and interests, particularly his serious passion for professional bass fishing and various hunting sports that require patience, strategy, and a deep understanding of wildlife behavior. Tom's love for pro bass fishing goes beyond casual weekend trips to the local lake. As he follows the professional bass fishing circuit with the same enthusiasm that other people reserve for football or baseball, keeping up with tournament results, fishing techniques, and the latest equipment developments in the competitive fishing world. Professional bass fishing is a highly technical sport that requires extensive knowledge of fish behavior, water conditions, seasonal patterns, and specialized equipment, making it far more complex than the simple fishing that most people associate with relaxing by a pond with a basic rod and reel. Tom's serious interest in this sport demonstrates his appreciation for activities that combine skill, strategy, and competition, much like the precision work he does on custom automobiles, where attention to detail and technical expertise can make the difference between success and failure. In addition to his bass fishing passion, Tom is also an avid hunter who particularly enjoys deer hunting, which requires its own set of specialized skills, including tracking, understanding animal behavior patterns, and mastering various types of shooting equipment. However, Tom is refreshingly honest about his limitations as a marksman, readily admitting that while he loves shooting sports and finds them enjoyable, he's not particularly accomplished when it comes to long-distance shooting that requires the kind of precision and steady hands that separate amateur enthusiasts from truly skilled marksmen. Tom's main motivation for fishing seems to be his genuine love of eating fish, which adds a practical element to his hobby that goes beyond just the sport and competition aspects of angling. His favorite type of hunting has always been deer hunting, which combines his love of being outdoors with the challenge of tracking and understanding wildlife behavior patterns that require patience and careful observation skills that probably complement his mechanical problem-solving abilities in the garage, his own television special. In what might be the ultimate example of Tom Smith getting the last laugh after his controversial departure from Gas Monkey Garage, he managed to orchestrate one of the most satisfying acts of professional revenge in reality television history by literally taking control of his former boss's production resources to create his own television special. Tom's frustration with how his Fast and Loud career ended apparently reached such a boiling point that he decided to turn the tables on Richard Rawlings by commandeering the very cameras and crew that had been filming Gas Monkey Garage operations and using them to produce his own show that would air on the Discovery Channel. The resulting television special was called Tom Takes Over, which perfectly captured both the rebellious nature of the project and Tom's characteristic sense of humor about workplace authority and power dynamics. Rather than simply complaining about his treatment at Gas Monkey Garage or trying to start over completely from scratch, Tom found a way to use the existing Fast and Loud production infrastructure to tell his own version of the story and showcase the work he had accomplished during his time as one of the show's most popular cast members. The format that Tom chose for his takeover special involved counting down his 31 favorite builds from his Gas Monkey days, which gave him the perfect opportunity to highlight his mechanical contributions to the show, while also providing commentary and behind-the-scenes insights that viewers had never heard before. This countdown approach allowed Tom to revisit some of the most memorable cars and projects that had made Fast and Loud successful, but with his own perspective and storytelling style, rather than the usual Richard Rawlings-centered narrative that dominated the regular episodes. The special focused specifically on what Tom described as his top builds, rocking racers, and favorite flips that had made his time as a Gas Monkey mechanic so memorable, giving him the chance to celebrate his own work and share stories about projects that had been particularly meaningful or challenging during his television career. By taking over the cameras and crew to create this special, Tom essentially turned his frustration and disappointment into a creative opportunity that allowed him to have the final word about his Fast and Loud experience.